everyone. I really appreciate y'all coming. We just had a couple difficulties, technical, that we had to like iron out, but everything's cool. Hi, my name is Peggy Stap, and I'm the Executive Director of Marine Life Study and also a co-founder of the Whale Entanglement Team. I'm going to talk to you about some whales that we disentangled in 2016, also some new ideas with crab fishing to help mitigate some of those entanglements. But I have a special presentation about partway through from 4 wonderful young people that wanted to do something to help with whales that were entangled. So they'll be coming up, and then afterwards I'll continue. But we're celebrating 11 years this year. Besides the Whale Entanglement Team, we also have our research scientist program where we teach research techniques to people from all walks of life, young and old. We've inspired a lot of people to go back to school and get a degree in marine science. We also use that for our training platform for the Whale Entanglement Team, known as WET, which is very important because we use a lot of the same tools during the research. I have a federal permit to study different whales and dolphins in Monterey Bay, so it's a perfect opportunity to train people so that they're ready when we do have a response of an entangled whale. We also do free programs for the kids of the Boys and Girls Club. We teach them about whales and dolphins, take them whale watching. We've been a community partner with them since 2010, Salinas and Seaside, and we just really like inspiring the young people, which is really an important part of our mission. We also have our community cleanup called Take It to the Streets. We're going to be having a cleanup, and we're partnering with Save Our Shores and Surfrider tomorrow if you'd be interested in coming and help. Yes? I'm sorry, what? Oh, why is it like that? What happened? Yeah, well, we've been doing it. It was doing a range. Let's see. I don't know why. But it was just up. So that here, let me go here. Thank you for letting me know. Monitor displays, arrangement. But it's on mirror displays. That's why I got to take that off. For some reason, it was on like that. Yeah, we just had it up, so I don't know why it switched in the middle. There. Yeah, thank you. It was working great a few minutes ago. Okay. Well, anyway, we're celebrating 11 years. But this next segment is a video that was done by Stephanie Marcos, who was a junior at CSUMB, and this was in May of 2015. She put together a video that'll give you an overview of the kind of work that the Whale Entanglement Team does. She did an incredible job, so just enjoy. Reports of entangled whales have significantly increased off the coast of California. As you can see, they are pretty devastating. These gentle giants are suffering from life-threatening entanglements. These entanglements can lead to a slow and painful death, as seen in these photos with the line wrapped around the tail area and the line through its mouth, near its eye, as the whale gazes at us. But there's hope. Working under a special federal permit with the Marine Mammal Health and Stranding Response Program, we have a trained team that gives whales another chance at life. Always working from small boats, never getting in the water with the whales, as it is too dangerous for the whale and the rescuers. By using tools specially designed to disentangle whales, along with proven methods, we are able to free whales in distress. WET plays a pivotal role in saving these whales. Did you free it?
Yes!
Woo! WET is saving whales one at a time. How many of you saw Big Blue Live when they were filming here back in September 2015? Quite a few. Well, Stephanie did that video in the spring of that year, and they used a lot of that footage for the entanglement portion of that program, and they had our level 4 Peter Falcons narrate it. So I thought Stephanie did an incredible job. I'm not going to go to a complete history of the Whale Entanglement Team, but I just kind of put up a lot of the highlights. I co-founded it with Mary Whitney from Fluke Foundation, who is also on our board of directors. And it was not an easy climb, but we've come a long way. We've done many printings of the reporting and response card and the marine mammal waterproof guide that has all the information. You know, we got our first set of tools, had the first official training. Now we have a larger boat, and it just goes on and on. But we're very proud of all the work done by the volunteers in our organization, but also our community partners, which there are many. Over the years, you can see how many. Actually, the Conservation Working Group from the Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary was very instrumental when we were trying to get this set up. Mary and I both worked in Hawaii with research teams, and we're part of a disentanglement network there. So when we got a call in the fall of 2006 about an entangled whale here, I was shocked that there was nothing set up. So we worked hard, and now we're part of a bigger network called California Whale Rescue. And these are some of our main partners here. Like, we go up and down the coast. We're primarily from San Luis Obispo to the Oregon border, but we've gone all the way down to Santa Barbara. But here, some of our key partners is the Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary. They've been incredible. The U.S. Coast Guard are awesome. Moss Landing Marine Lab, and you'll see this vessel in one of the disentanglements that we did this year. And the whale watching and the fishing community have been just incredible. If they see an animal and they can't stay with it, they oftentimes transfer. They have to go back in and pick up passengers. Another whale watch will come and stand by. It's so important if we get people to stand by, because even missing, like, we've run out and a whale watch boat had to leave and it's been 20 minutes. Those whales are moving. It's like a moving needle in a moving haystack. So it's so important when we have that kind of community partnership, and it's really tight, so we're really glad of where we live. Now, this is one of the best additions to our toolbox, and we got this in June of 2015. And now the theory was everything was done from small boats. Now they're doing more stuff from larger boats, and I'm a level 3, and that skiff on the very back of the boat we can use and deploy and attach a telemetry buoy to. We also have this 14.5 foot Hypalon roll-up boat, which we keep in a trailer at Moss Landing Marine Lab boat ops, because we did have a trailer with all the tools in it with this boat and a motor. But since we got the larger boat, we've transferred all the tools to our boat, so we have everything on our boat that we need to disentangle a whale. Now, one thing about entanglement, every entanglement is different, and you need to fully assess it. Because here, what you see, it looks like a line over the back of the animal. Looks like, man, you could just make a cut, and that'd be kind of simple, wouldn't it? But that's not what's really going on. So that's why assessing under the water is so important. Because had you just cut that line at the top, that would not have freed the entanglement on this whale, and that whale probably would have lost its pec fin. Provincetown, for coastal studies out east, they develop a lot of the tools that we buy. They're very specialized, such as this whale rescue knife. I mean, a knife like that is $500. They're not inexpensive. It's razor sharp, and you can lose a finger. So anyway, that's why each entanglement is so different. And you can see the one that's wrapped around the peduncle, around the pec fin, through the mouth, over the body. So that's why it's so essential that we have underwater assessment. And it's not always easy, because the whale, we have to make more approaches close to the whale in order to get that assessment. And I have 4 young, wonderful people that called me last fall and wanted to know what they could do to help with disentanglement. And they were going to be entering this contest. Well, I'll let them tell you about. But we took the time and talked to them. We put them in touch with Jameson Smith, who's the head for disentanglement in the country, and Brian Keft, who's with the Monterey Bay Aquarium Research Institute. And they were wonderful in answering all the questions. We had several conferences on the phone, and they're ages 10 to 14. So I'd like to introduce and turn the floor over and give them a warm welcome, the Rehard family, Operation TAP.
Hello, we are Operation TAC, which stands for Technology and Character, Technology and Character, Operation TAC. We are a sibling team ranging from ages 10 to 14. Our dad is the head coach and our mom is the assistant. Our 3 younger siblings are the cheerleaders. We are part of First Lego League, also known as FLL. FIRST is an acronym which stands for Inspiration and Recognition of Science and Technology. There are 3 parts to the FLL competition: core values, robot, and project.
Part 1, core values. During the competition, each team is judged on 8 character qualities. Part 2, robot game. We program an autonomous robot to accomplish missions on a 4x8 foot playing field. Each mission is worth a certain number of points. The goal is to score as many points as possible in 2.5 minutes.
Part 3, project. Teams find a real-world problem and develop an innovative solution. This year's theme is Animal Allies. What that means for project is that teams need to find a problem with a human-animal interaction and then solve that problem in a way that has never been done before. Those are the 3 parts of the FLL competition. Now, here's our project presentation.
Problem identification. The animal that we chose is the whale, and the problem we found is when whales get entangled in commercial fishing nets and ropes, such as crab and lobster pots, long lines, drift gill nets, and set gill nets. Fishermen use these to catch their target fish, but other marine animals also get caught. This is referred to as bycatch. Gill nets, often called walls of death, are 1 mile long in the U.S., but up to 75 miles long elsewhere. Sometimes whales can get out of entanglements, but if they can't, they may die in one of 3 ways: starvation, from their mouth being tied shut; infection, ropes have actually cut off whale flukes; and drowning, either because the net is anchored to the sea floor or the weight of the entanglement wears them out. Life-threatening entanglements may lead to a slow and painful death, causing whales up to 6 months of suffering before dying. Over 100 whale entanglements are confirmed each year in the U.S. alone. Some, according to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA, this number only represents 30% of whale entanglements, which means up to 70% go unobserved.
Existing solutions. The first step of NOAA whale disentanglement procedures is to assess the situation. Assessment is as important to a whale rescue team as an MRI is to a surgeon. Currently, a GoPro camera on a long stick is used to do the assessment, but there are 5 problems with it. The person in the boat must be close to the whale to use the GoPro, which is very dangerous. It takes 3 to 4 times to approach the whale to fully assess it, which wastes time. When the rescue team comes back to attempt cutting, the whale can be too distressed to let them. Footage is shaky because it's hard to hold the GoPro steady, and the long stick of the GoPro can break due to the force of the water. Cutting the wrong part of the entanglement can cause more problems for the whale and the rescue team.
We used off-the-shelf items which only cost $3,310 to develop a robot we call the Wireless ROV Sub. ROV stands for Remotely Operated Vehicle. Our robot solves the 5 problems the GoPro on a stick causes during the assessment phase. With our robot, approaches to the whale by the boat for assessment are not needed because the rescue team can operate the robot from a safe distance away from the whale. Our robot is small and quiet, so it does not distress the whale like a boat does. Our robot is sturdy, and the footage is not shaky. Our wireless ROV sub provides live footage for the team as they remotely drive it around the whale to do a complete assessment of the entanglement. Here's how it works. The ROV is connected to an antenna, making it wireless, which is attached to a surface float, such as a boogie board. The tether is 16 feet long and is tied to 5 3-foot-long PVC pipes so it won't entangle the whale. There are 2 inches of tether between the pipes. This allows the ROV to move freely from the surface down to a depth of 16 feet, which is well below the required 10 feet in order to see under the whale. Our solution is a valuable tool to use in addition to existing entanglement tools because it safely provides a whole whale assessment. NOAA liked our solution so much that they met with the Nature Conservancy to discuss manufacturing it.
Sharing. We shared our solution with 4 experts. Captain Dave Anderson of Orange County Whale Rescue is a good friend of ours. He's the one who inspired us to learn more about whales. Mrs. Peggy Stap, co-founder of Whale Entanglement Team, was excited about using our solution and invited us to share it at the Whalefest. Mr. Brian Keefe, engineer for Monterey Bay Aquarium and Research Institute, loved that we thought outside the box. Mr. Jameson Smith, a high-ranking person for NOAA, said, and I quote, "You have one-of-a-kind invention. You are very ingenious." He invited us to share a solution at the American Cetacean Society. He told us NOAA is partnering with us to manufacture a solution.
That concludes our project presentation. Keep in mind that project is only one of 3 parts to the FLL competition. This season, 32,000 FLL teams from around the world competed in regional competitions, but only 100 of them were selected to advance to the World Championship. By God's grace, we were one of them. If you would like to help get us to the World Championship in Houston, Texas this April, please visit www.operationtac.com. We'd also love to meet you in person, so please visit our booth today. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely come on over. They have the robot that they had to do for the contest, so you can see what they put together. It's amazing. They're really incredible young people, and they really inspire me. Believe me, and I'm excited once we get the prototype and we can test it so that we can use that. So it's going to be really a great tool. As I said earlier, whale entanglements have been increasing over the years. As you can see, like from 2000 to 2013, we had probably about 6 in Northern California out of the 10 reports of California, or actually the whole West Coast. And we had, about 60% here. But in 2014, we got more reports. We had been doing a lot of outreach with our marine mammal guide, waterproof guide, that has all the information in it. And we have some in the back of the room, so on your way out if you want to grab one. Also, 2015 was just incredibly crazy. We had entanglements in January and February. I remember one day we went out because Whale Watch the night before had spotted a whale, but they didn't stay with it, but we didn't have any photos. So the next morning we went out and searched for that whale. Wasn't the same, we found an entangled whale, but it wasn't the same one we were looking for. We found a second entangled whale because the whales were here feeding, which crossed over at the same time as the crab fisheries, Dungeness crabs. So, but in 2016, then these are kind of low numbers for Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary, and the reason I'm not giving you for the whole state is because they didn't give me the updated numbers. NOAA doesn't like me to put out numbers that they haven't, solidified yet. But I know there's at least 23 confirmed here. There could be upwards of 31 confirmed, but I know myself of 23, which is 2 more than in 2015. So, they are steadily increasing. Now I'm going to talk about some cases that we saw this year. One of our projects with the Research Scientist Program, I have a federal permit, and one of the animals that we study are orcas or killer whales. And these killer whales, there was a group of about 12 or 14 milling about because they had killed a gray whale calf in the morning and they were feeding. Well, this one male broke off from the group and started heading right towards crab pot buoys, and it dove, and everyone on the boat was like, no, please don't become entangled. And sure enough, came up and it was entangled in the crab pot gear. Now that's the first time we've ever seen an animal become entangled, which really worried me. But now when that animal came up, now he had part of the entanglement in front of the dorsal fin. He went up and down a few times. He was completely entangled. But what concerned me is we'd never had a report of an entangled killer whale live, but in 2015 up in Fort Bragg, one washed ashore, and it had entanglement around the tailstock, but also around the pec fin. And I didn't show the pec fin because it was a pretty kind of gory picture. But then the killer whale dove again, and when it came up, he was no longer entangled. We know that animals do self-release because there was a big population abundance study a few years ago that I was part of in Hawaii and also here on the West Coast. And in some areas, up to 60 to 80% of humpback whales had entanglement scars. And people throughout the North Pacific that disentangle whales aren't disentangling that much of the population because they figured the population was at that time up to about 18,000 animals. So they can throw the gear. And we've had entanglements where we didn't do anything because we knew it would throw the gear, and it did. And why do they get entangled? One reason we think this killer whale got entangled, I think he was full, he was just kind of bored. You know, he sees something in his backyard, in his water, and he thought he'd play with it. The problem is they can play with it, but they can't break it. Humpback whale here, we watched for over 2 hours play in kelp. It would wrap it around the rostrum area, which is this upper area around its mouth, around its tail, its pec fin, and kept breaking it. But if that was blue steel line wrapped around that mouth of that animal, he or she would not be able to feed. So that could be a very slow, painful death of starvation. Another one we had this year was on April 20th. We got a call late in the day, and this was by John on the Okie Dokie. He's a fisherman. That's why I say the fishing community, you know, they don't want to see animals entangled any more than we do, and they've been a very great support group for us. And they really have helped every way that they can. He stood by until the response team got out there, and our level 4, Peter Falcons, attached this telemetry buoy, and the telemetry buoy is the green with the little antenna on the top, and you can see the line from this photo is wrapped around the body. So what we did the next day, now I didn't get my laser pointer, but up in the middle of the bay, you see a line coming from shore. That's just the telemetry buoy turned on and waiting to be deployed. So it got deployed around 1800, around 6 o'clock. So overnight, that whale, keep following that red line all the way down, and it traveled. It was going south. And when we left Moss Landing, we left around 7 o'clock in the morning, and it was already way down there at 7:56. But the time we got down there, the whale was already down where that big red X is. So what we have to do is the telemetry buoy has an Argos signal that goes up to a satellite, then beams down to a computer in France. There's some calculations, and then we get the Latin long. So there's a delay in the signal because it can only send a signal to the satellite when the satellite's overhead, and if the whale dove, it can dive with that telemetry buoy as much as 1,000 feet, and it's fine, but it can't send a signal unless it's at the surface. So it also carries a VHF signal in that. So we use a 3-element antenna to pick up that signal so we can get in the general vicinity of the whale, and then we can fine-tune it with that particular antenna. And this is Doug Ross, who I'll talk about later. He's was a great member of our team. He passed away, unfortunately, but he was so diligent, and we found the whale. And what we do is we stand by and try to get more assessment while we are waiting for the rest of our team. And here is some of our wet members, and also some gentlemen from NOAA, and they have our 14.5-foot hypalon roll-up boat that we put on the Coast Guard boat and then deployed from there. And so they deployed that boat, and then we got some more assessment. And the neat thing about the album that we have is that we have electricity, computers on board. I have a hotspot on my phone, so we can download the video and pictures, take screenshots, send it to NOAA, because we consult with the NOAA officials, because a lot of them had been doing this 25 years or more, to know what the right method that should be done on this particular whale. So we just don't go in and start hacking and slashing. It's very well thought out. So the idea was to cut the line up there. You can see where it kind of comes together. Ideally, if we just made one cut, that's what we wanted to do. We didn't want to have any more than 2, but we would hope to do it in 1. So this is the Hypalon roll-up boat, and this is Ryan Berger, who's with Point Blue.
Good speed. Here we go. It's coming up, I think.
And see how he's flapping his fluke? His whale is not happy. Not happy at all.
Okay. I think I got something. I mean, I know I got something there.
He did get something. He was able to cut the line, but he had to go back in for one more cut because he only got one of the two lines. But he was successful in getting that done. And the reason the whale was slapping its tail, because they had tried to get underwater assessment and had to approach the whale several times, and the whale would always turn to the right. It just did not like it. And of course the whale didn't thank us afterwards. You always hear about people, oh, the whale thanks them, but this whale, he just went on its merry way. It actually threw its tail like a peduncle throw, like, see ya, I'm out of here, just leave me alone. But the whale was clear of the entanglement and probably continued down the coast. We only attach the telemetry buoy to the trailing gear, never on the animal itself, and we don't have a permit to put a tag on them afterwards, which would be really nice because then we could see where it went and what happened. We had one whale that we started up here in 2014, put the telemetry buoy on. It went all the way down to the Channel Islands. We drove down with our wet-on wheels with all the equipment, and were able to disentangle it down there, and it was so... The fluke was so cut around the peduncle area, it wasn't using it, it was just using its pec fins. Well, about 45 days later, now this had never happened. I was out with a research scientist program with an intern from Ireland, Colorado, and one local, and I see this whale, and I'm like, man, that looks like our whale. So I went in, got authorization to go in, and sure enough, it was the whale that we disentangled down in Southern California. A lot of people didn't think that whale would make it because it was such a deep cut in the peduncle area right by the fluke, but it survived, and it swam all the way back up, so we were real thrilled. Another one, now this was kind of unique because we've never had a report and disentangled a whale in one day. The one I was telling you about in 2014 that went down to the Channel Islands, that was from 17 days from start to finish because it went offshore, went down the coast, the weather was horrible. We tried to get it in Morro Bay, but we couldn't. Now this was a young guy with a son, and they were out fishing, and they saw an entangled whale. And he had a little boy named Miles. And so they reported the whale, and then his dad was going to go on his merry way and to continue fishing. And his son goes, no, Dad, it's more important to save a whale. So they stood by until we got there. And that was one of the reasons we were able to disentangle this whale. It's so nice when we have someone stand by. So we got on scene, and we're doing assessment. And luckily, this was a fairly simple entanglement. And it was really funny because the entire time this whale was feeding, it would do a lateral lunge feed at the surface over and over and over. Other whales would come in and then come out with this whale. And so it was just uncanny. You can see him here. We knew it wasn't around the mouth. We knew it wasn't around the pec because we could see that from the surface. We didn't even need underwater for that. So we waited until Moss Landing Marine Lab came out with a couple NOAA folks, and now they're going to attach the telemetry. And this is how it's done. We had a carabiner on the long pole. She's going to throw the telemetry overboard. So now that's just attached to the trailing line. Like I said, we never attach it to a whale. We were able to get underwater GoPro, and it just confirmed everything that we'd seen from the surface. So it was just a simple cut, and we used this knife on a long pole. So that was really nice. We never, since we started, had one where we disentangled in one day. Now, there's something else we had this year. Now, this is not the entangled blue whale, but it's the first entangled blue whale we have ever had up in the Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary. But watch this whale. It's coming right towards our boat. We were sitting dead in the water for 30 minutes with a hydrophone in the water. And this whale came up a half a mile away, kept coming towards our boat, comes all the way to our boat, and flukes up. Now, look at the scarring on this fluke. I think it had been entangled at some point in its life. It must have thrown the gear and left some of the scars. But you can tell the difference between that blue whale. That was back in 2010. I just love that video, so I like to show it. But we had our first one sighted this year on July 28th. And you can see the difference in the fluke from the one you just saw in the video. This one has the tips are pointed up, kind of like on an airplane wings. Up here we call it Cadillac, kind of like from the old 50s cars. But down south in Southern California, it's named Delta. So it's a well-known blue whale, and it likes to fluke up. So we got a call from a whale watch boat, Princess Monterey, and so we raced out, but they lost the whale before we got there. So we had to search, and we actually found the blue whale. We didn't have it for very long when the fog moved in, which was horrifying because we never found it again. But we were able to get at least this shot, and you can see the entanglement crisscrossing over the back, and the buoys were trailing behind. So we looked and looked and looked that day. We never found it again. But we thought with all the whale watching and fishing people out on the water, plus our research scientists program were on the water quite a bit, we'd see that. But it wasn't sighted again until August 27th. So we went out and we were able to get a lot of different underwater assessment. The problem was that we knew it wasn't in the mouth, it wasn't on the left peck, and it wasn't wrapped around the peduncle or the fluke. We believed that it was wrapped around the right peck, but we could never get on the right side of that whale. It was not easy getting that underwater assessment, where the new tool, once it's all approved by NOAA, will be a great asset for us. But NOAA didn't want us to put a telemetry buoy on because they thought maybe the extra drag would cut the peck fin. So we weren't able to put a telemetry buoy on it, which was really a shame. But, you know, we just can't save them all, unfortunately. There's a certain protocol that we have to follow. But we learned a lot from this animal, too. And they did see it in Southern California later, and they attempted to do some cuts on it, but I don't think they were successful. A blue whale is a whole different animal than a humpback. They're so much larger and very unpredictable. But we learn about a lot from each assessment, each entanglement. Even if you're out there and you see a whale and you take videos and pictures from 100 yards away, it's amazing what we can learn just from that. I had a fisherman in 2015. I was searching for an entangled whale close to Moss Landing, and he reported one like 30 miles offshore. He said the weather was horrible there, but he got one picture. And from that one picture, later that summer, we had an entangled whale inside the bay, and sure enough, it was that same whale, and we were able to disentangle it. But there are some good news coming. NOAA and National Marine Fisheries Service is working with the Dungeness crab fisheries off the California, and they want to help mitigate the problem as well. They don't want whales entangled anymore than we do. One, it costs them a lot of money. So they had put together this best practices, and that's where the amount of line that goes from that crab pot buoy at the seafloor to the main buoy is taut. Instead of having a lot of scope of line flowing through the water column, it keeps it straight and taut. So they're less likely maybe to get caught in it. Also, they have a little trailer buoy. They shorten that line up. And they have done that this year, and hopefully that will help mitigate some. It's not going to get rid of all of them, because if you have a whale that's got its mouth open through a huge bait ball of fish, it's still probably going to get it caught in its mouth. But maybe if it's taut, the animal could back out of it. You know, that's just one of many things that they're doing. So there's a lot of good work going forward trying to stop this program, or problem, not a program, this problem, because what we do is really kind of a Band-Aid on the problem. We need to be able to disentangle those whales. I mean, they're being caused by human interactions, and the fishermen are doing their job because there's a lot of demand for crab or spot prawn or whatever. We had a guy a couple years ago, not from this area, spot prawn fisherman, came inside Moss Landing, way into the inside near Moss, dropped 25 spot prawns, 2 mud acres, in 300 feet of water with 600 feet of scope of line. By 3:45 that day, I got a call. And by tracing back the numbers, we knew he set that at 9:15 in the morning. We went out, put a telemetry buoy on it, even though we knew it wasn't moving. It was barely keeping its head above the water because it was being so weighted down. We were able to disentangle it the next day, but I think this, with the best practices, shortening those lines will be very helpful. So it's nice that, you know, they're all working together and not being, you know, adversarial. So we're very excited about that. And we have a lot of projects in the work. This is Doug Ross. I mentioned he died of a heart attack in December. He was an important part of our whale entanglement team. He had designed telemetry buoy with less drag, because the one you saw in the picture in the water was round and weighs about 48 pounds, but it's approved by NOAA and it can go down to 1,000 feet. This one is a lot less drag, but we went out and did some tests, and the Monterey Bay Aquarium Research Institute let us come there, and we talked to them about it. And he redesigned a little bit different shape that he was working on just before he died. His friend, gentleman, called me, reached out to me and said that Doug had sent him the drawings, and he's a mechanical engineer. He was going to do the graphics for us, for Doug, so he's going to do that for us and to move forward. Plus there's some people in Southern California working on more aerodynamic design. And then I've been working with Bob Talbot and Jared Berg of Monterey Diving. He's did some side scans on the bottom, and there are pots that are kind of like embedded in the seafloor that still have line but no buoys at the surface. So we've been looking for funding so we can go in and at least, if we can't get the pot out, at least cut the line at the base so that, you know, an animal doesn't get entangled. Because a lot of animals get entangled in ghost netting, derelict gear, things of that sort. So how can you help? There's a lot of ways that you can help. If you're out on the water, call 877 SOS Whale, call the Coast Guard, stand by, like I said, maintain 100 yards and take photos. You know, we're always needing support. We're basically a volunteer organization. I'm the executive director of Marine Life Studies, and I volunteer. And so we need funds for a lot of different tools and things of that nature. So you can hold a fundraiser. We'll come and talk and do demonstrations, whatever you like. If you want, you can donate funds and equipment. And we need a lot of funds for fuel. It's probably one of the most expensive part of whale rescue, because you usually have to go out there pretty fast, and the faster you go, the more fuel you use. We're still looking to update some more cameras. We need a few more Hero GoPro type cameras, some hard drives, some handheld videos, things of that sort. So, you know, you can always come see me afterwards or go to whaleentanglementteam.org and, you know, contact us through there, or take one of our flyers. We have flyers and marine mammal guides at the back, so you just help yourself to that. And you should come over to our booth. You can try your hand, see some of the tools. Try your hand, and the tools, the poles we have over there are our old tools that were really heavy aluminum poles. But you can see how we like attach polyballs to slow the whale down, or how we would attach a telemetry buoy. So I really thank you, and you're more than welcome to ask questions, and I can have Operation TAC up too as well, so to ask questions. So thank you very much. Does anyone have any questions? Back there in the back?
Do you know how the prognosis of these whales that have been entangled that survive?
Well, we don't know all of the prognosis. If we get a recite, that's what's wonderful, but we don't always get a recite, so, and we might not find that same whale for a year or two. Anyone else have a question? Anyone a question for Operation TAC? We're really excited about using the underwater assessment that they got. So thank you very much. Come and visit. Oh, you got a question? Well, most of it is from just individual donors. We've written some grants, but mostly the grants we get are for our education programs. We did get a grant last year from Fish and Games Commission because the year before one of our telemetry buoys was lost. It was attached to a whale, and we believe the whale went all the way down to south of Ensenada, Mexico, all the way up to back to Bodega Bay. I can't talk. And then was 100 miles west of Moss Landing, was on its way in, was 80 miles out at 3 a.m., and after that we never got a signal, but it was crossing the shipping lane, so we think it got hit by a ship. We don't really know. So we did get a new telemetry buoy last year because of a grant, the Fish and Games, but a lot of it's just individual donors like yourself. Thank you. Sure. He just wondered if maybe they're changing some of the crab fisheries without using the ropes or the lines. Someone had suggested maybe the crab pot at the bottom, and if there was a way that they had some kind of thing near the bottom, so once they drop it, none of the buoys would be at the surface. It would be right next to the crab pot. And then maybe they'd have a signal that would shoot down to that would release a buoy so they could pull up their pots. They're looking at things like that. There's pingers and different things that they're trying. They're going to do a big assessment. They got some grant money this last year from the state, so they're going to do an assessment and see what other things that they can do. There's been a lot of things tried on the East Coast because the northern right whales get entangled there, and they are so highly endangered. Just losing one is really devastating for the population.
Who's doing the assessment?
It's going to be NOAA. They got some money to do the assessment, yes. So that's important to see where the crab pots are. The problem is, it'd be nice if they had GPS receivers on those crab pots so we would know if it was still in the area or not. But, you know, they don't want other fishermen to know their special fishing spots, so there's kind of a problem there.
You have time for one more question.
Time for one more question. Well, I really appreciate your time and energy today, and come see us at the booth and try your hand and see some of the tools, and you can see some other pictures. We have the anatomy of disentanglement from start to finish. So we'll be out there working hard this year. Hopefully we don't get that many responses.